Exodus chapter 19. I'm in Exodus chapter 19. God had called Moses up to the mountain, and he gave him a series of laws and commandments for the people. And God said, "Now therefore, if you will obey my voice and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine." Verse 6, "And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel." So God is saying to Moses, this is what you should say unto the children of Israel. "And Moses came and called for the elders of the people and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, All that the Lord hath spoken we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord." So again, God is making a covenant, right? And I told you before that covenants were cut in blood. So God is making a covenant, and he's saying, Moses, tell the people that this is what I want to do for them. I want to make them a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. And the people answered and said, "Everything that the Lord is requesting we will do." And the Lord said unto Moses, "Lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and believe thee forever." And Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Moses, "Go unto the people, and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and be ready against the third day. For the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever toucheth the mount shall be surely put to death. There shall not an hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned, or shot through. Whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet soundeth long, they shall come up to the mount." And Moses went down from the mount unto the people, and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. So, the first thing that's significant is you just walked through a riverbed.
Oh.
There was water that came down, and this is the reason most likely that what we're going to read about next was built and constructed in this place at the foot of the mountain.
Oh.
Because if it was a place of sacrifice, there had to be a lot of blood, and there had to be the washing of hands and cleansing. And so the water would have come down in the riverbed, and you walked right through it down in the valley. So when Moses said, "I want the people to come from the camp, and I want them to wash their clothes as purification," 3 days later, after the purification, God says, "I'm going to reveal myself on the mountain. They're going to see me coming down on Sinai, but they're to wash their clothes for purification before that point." And Moses, and he said unto the people, "Be ready on the third day." And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that were in the camp trembled. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the nether part of the mount in this area. And Mount Sinai was altogether on smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And it goes on. And now, skip over with me. I'm going to chapter 24. Chapter 24. "And Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord." So Moses went back up. He gets a word from the Lord about the laws. Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the judgments. And all the people answered with one voice and said, "All the words which the Lord hath said, we will do." So again, this is a bilateral covenant, a covenant between two parties, God and the people. "And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord, and rose up early in the morning, and built an altar under the hill, and 12 pillars, according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men and the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto the Lord. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read in the audience of the people, and they said, all that the Lord hath said we will do, and be obedient. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, and said, behold the blood of the covenant which the Lord hath made with you concerning all these words. So what you have, folks, it's very likely that this may very well be the place where that altar was built, and the Bible tells us that God commanded that the altar be made in such a way that it was not made with any tools. It was to be made with stones that were stacked one on top of the other. And that's exactly what we find here. Absolutely a man-made space. We can see it, but not with tools. Exactly the way the Bible describes it. And so what you had is an altar of sacrifice at the foot of the mountain. You had the slaying of animals, and you had the blood that would drain down and could be washed in the riverbed that came by. You also have, what you're sitting on right here, are chutes. And these chutes were for the animals that would be lined up in preparation for the sacrifice here at the altar. So you have all of the components in this place that were required. You have the chutes where the animals were kept in preparation for the sacrifice. You have the altar. You have the riverbed that flows through. So you had water rushing through. You have all of these components. And we're told that it was told to set up 12 pillars. You saw the stones back here. You saw those pillars. So it's very likely that with all of these components that you see all coming together, the story makes perfect sense. At the foot of the mountain, the encampments were out that way, and you have the chutes for the animals, the altar here, and the river that ran through, and the columns. Okay, all in close proximity at the foot of the mountain. Okay, so an amazing place.
So the blood here, or the altar here, and then
We don't know exactly, but we know it's made without tools. This was the high place. This was the chute. You can see the chute behind you, where the animals would have been kept.
Oh,
here.
yeah.
And it's right on the edge of the water area where the riverbed would have come through. So for purification, for cleansing, altar on the high place. But remember, it couldn't be any higher because everyone was commanded, animals and people.
Yeah.
They were not allowed to touch the holy mountain. Okay, so the presence of God dwelt. So 3 days after their washing, right? They washed their clothes in a purification. God said, I'm going to reveal myself on the mountain. Okay, so of course we know later in the story, we saw earlier where we had the inscriptions of the calves of the bulls. Okay, it's possible that may be the place where the golden calf was constructed and elevated within the camp of the people. So you can imagine, you can visualize the whole story when you have the mountain, the presence of God, Moses, he's making a covenant. And just imagine if this is the place, and the components are all here. If this is the place, this is where God instituted the Mosaic Moses. I talked about Mosaic covenant in our Sunday school class a couple months ago. And one woman came up to me afterwards. She said, when you said Mosaic covenant, the whole time I was thinking of a mosaic of stone. Mosaic as in Moses. Okay, so this was the place probably where God instituted his law, gave his law to his people. But folks, I want you to understand something. This is crucially important to connect the dots for the time in which we live, and with our love for humanity and for our love for God's people. You have to understand that they still believe they're living under that Mosaic law. They still believe. And listen, what they don't have today is they don't have a temple, and they don't have the place of sacrifice. So how do they, if God requires a blood sacrifice, Without the shedding of blood, there's no remission of sin. So if there is no temple and there is no sacrificial system, then how do they find acceptance before holy God? Good deeds. The rabbi said good deeds. And so they live, that's why there's so much giving and humanitarian work that they do. So listen, folks, the Mosaic covenant was instituted most likely in this place. A covenant that it was God's solemn oath that if the people kept their end of the bargain, that God would honor his end of the deal. But listen, the people broke the covenant. It was bilateral. A covenant that was bilateral had to be held to by both covenanting parties. And why was the blood sprinkled on the people here? We're told in the text from the sacrifice, because covenants were made in blood. So when God is making a covenant and the people say all that God says we will do, there's animals killed and there's blood that is sprinkled on the people because it was a covenant that was made in blood. But the children of Israel broke the covenant. They broke the covenant. And in Jeremiah 31, remember we talked about it earlier in our tour? In Jeremiah 31, God says, there is coming a day when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel. Not according to the covenant I made with them in the wilderness when they came out of Egypt, which was what? Which they broke. They broke the covenant. They couldn't keep the covenant. So there was a new covenant coming. And even in the Old Testament, we're told about that new covenant. And that new covenant is when Jesus Christ came. And he cut a new covenant in his blood. You understand the connection between the two sites? So, the Mosaic covenant was bilateral, and if it was broken, it was done away with. There was something that came that superseded it later, and that's through the person of Jesus Christ and the covenant he made when he shed his blood on the cross of Calvary for the sin of the world. An amazing sight. So, take it in, enjoy it, take some pictures, and then shortly we'll be heading back.
And the sheep are right above your head.